September 1705. Paris. In a luxurious mansion on Rue de Tournelles, a woman is dying. She is 85 years old. 85. In an era when the average life expectancy is 40 years. Around her bed gather the most influential people in France: dukes, marquises, philosophers. All have come to say goodbye to the woman who turned their world upside down. But that's not the most shocking part. The most shocking thing is that among those present stands a young man who is still in love with her. He is 25, she is 85. And he is ready to marry her even now, even as she is dying. Her name was Anne de Lenclos. History knows her as Ninon de Lenclos, a woman who had 12 royal lovers, who refused King Louis XIV himself, who earned a fortune that could have supported an entire province, and who proved that a courtesan could die richer than a queen. But the most terrible thing in her story is something else. At 80 years old, she made her own son fall in love with her. Yes, her biological son whom she gave away after birth, and who didn't know who his mother was. When the truth was revealed, the boy shot himself. This is a tragedy that Ninon never spoke about. But let's start from the beginning. From the little girl whose father raised her like a boy. From the young beauty who at 15 told her mother she'd rather be a courtesan than a nun. From the woman who wrote the rules of the game that men still play today. If you think this is just a story about a libertine, you're mistaken. This is a story about a brilliant businesswoman who built an empire on male weakness. About a philosopher in a skirt whom Voltaire quoted. About a woman who proved that intelligence is stronger than beauty and freedom more precious than titles. Ready to learn how the daughter of a bankrupt nobleman became the richest courtesan in French history? Then hold on tight. Because what you're about to hear will change your perception of the 17th century. Forever. Paris, 1620. In a modest house on Rue de Tournelles lives a family that is about to fall apart. The father, Anne de Lenclos, a former officer, is squandering his last pennies. The mother, Marie-Louise, a pious Catholic, dreams of sending her daughter to a convent, and between them is 9-year-old Anne, a girl who reads Montaigne instead of prayers, who fences instead of embroidering, who speaks Latin better than priests. Her father did something incredible for that time. He gave his daughter the education that was only given to sons: philosophy, literature, music, dancing, horseback riding, even fencing. Imagine it. A 9-year-old girl in 17th century Paris holding a sword and reading Plato. Her mother was horrified, but her father had a plan. He knew there was no money for a dowry. He knew his daughter faced either an unsuccessful marriage or a convent, and he decided to give her a weapon that no man of that time possessed: intelligence. When Anne turned 12, her father died. He left debts instead of inheritance. Her mother immediately tried to fix the situation. She dragged her daughter to the Ursuline convent. 3 months. Exactly 3 months Anne lasted there. And then she said a phrase to her mother that became legendary: "I'd rather be the best courtesan in Paris than a mediocre nun." Her mother fell ill. She had hysterics. She threatened with curses. But Anne was unshakable. At 15 years old, she already knew what she wanted: freedom. And she knew how to get it, through men, but not through marriage. Oh no. Anne saw what happened to married women. They became the property of their husbands. They bore children until death. They died at 30 from exhaustion. No. Anne chose a different path. The path of a courtesan. But not an ordinary street prostitute. A courtesan of a new type. Educated, intelligent, independent. She started by opening a salon, simply in her father's house. She invited young poets, musicians, philosophers, free of charge. At first they came out of curiosity. Who is this girl who discusses Aristotle? Then they came for her. She wasn't just beautiful. She was magnetic. When she laughed, everyone laughed. When she spoke, everyone fell silent. She could maintain a conversation about war with a general, about poetry with a poet, about politics with a minister, and they all fell in love. Her first serious lover appeared when she was 16, Count Charles de Marcy. Young, rich, married, the perfect start to a courtesan's career. He paid for the house, for servants, for dresses, and she gave him what his wife didn't give: understanding, passion, the freedom to be himself. But Anne wasn't naive. She knew that Marcy wasn't forever. So in parallel, she was building a network. Every guest at her salon became a potential client. Every client became an advertisement. By 18, all of Paris was talking about her, Ninon de Lenclos. That's what she began calling herself. Ninon sounded easier than Anne. Younger, more playful, Anne de Lenclos became a brand, the brand of Paris's most intelligent courtesan. But real fame came with Cardinal Richelieu. Yes, that same all-powerful cardinal who ruled France. He was 50. She was 20. He could destroy her with one word. She could destroy him with one refusal. And she refused. Publicly. In front of the entire court. The cardinal sent her diamonds. She returned them. He offered an estate. She declined. He threatened exile. She laughed. Why did she risk so much? Because she understood one simple thing. If she became Richelieu's mistress, she would become his property. But if she refused him, she would become a legend. And she was right. All of France talked about the woman who said no to the most powerful man in the country. A line of lovers formed at her door, but now she could choose, and she established rules, Ninon's rules, which shocked even the debauched French court. First, money up front, always, no exceptions. Second, no promises of eternal love, 3 months maximum, then goodbye. Third, no jealousy. She can have multiple lovers simultaneously. Fourth, complete confidentiality. What happens in her bedroom stays there. Fifth, and most important, she will never marry. Never. Not for any money, not for any title. It seemed like suicide for a courtesan. But these rules made her the most desirable woman in France. Men went mad because they couldn't buy her completely, couldn't possess her, couldn't control her. The great Condé, hero of the 30 Years' War, victor at Rocroi, fell at her feet like a boy, begged her to marry him, promised to make her a princess. She refused, but allowed him to be lover number 3. Yes, she had a schedule. Monday and Thursday, the Marquis de Villarceau. Tuesday and Friday, the Duke of Enghien. Wednesday and Saturday, the Great Condé. Sunday, a day off. Even courtesans need rest. But the biggest scandal happened when the Great Condé's son fell in love with her. At the same time as his father, imagine it. Father and son fighting over one woman. The father is 50, the son is 20. Ninon is 35, and she chose the son. Why? Because he wrote better poetry. Seriously, that's what she told the Great Condé. Your son has more talent for poetry. Condé almost challenged his son to a duel, but Ninon stopped this insane plan with one phrase. If you kill him, I will never forgive you. If he kills you, I will mourn for 3 days. Choose. The duel didn't happen. Or the Marquis de Sévigné, husband of the famous writer Madame de Sévigné. He spent everything on Ninon, literally everything. Sold estates, pawned his wife's jewels, went into debts that his descendants were paying off for another 100 years. And when the money ran out, Ninon simply said, "Enough. Our 3 months are over. Goodbye." He begged, cried, threatened suicide. She sent him a suitcase with his belongings and a note. Don't be dramatic. It ruins your face. Cruel, but honest. She never promised eternal love. But how did she avoid the fate of other courtesans? Why wasn't she thrown in a prison? Sent to a convent? Burned as a witch? The secret was in her brilliant survival system. First, she never slept with married men whose wives could harm her. If the wife was at court, Ninon refused the husband. If the wife was in the provinces or abroad, then it was possible. Second, she always had a patron in the government. When Richelieu died, she seduced Mazarin. When Mazarin became too influential, she switched to Fouquet. When Fouquet fell, she already had connections with Colbert. She played political chess 20 moves ahead. Third, her salon was neutral territory. During the Fronde, when all of France was divided into 2 camps, both Frondeurs and Royalists gathered at Ninon's. They could kill each other in the street, but in her house, they drank wine and discussed poetry. She was untouchable because she was needed by everyone. If fourth and most important, money. Ninon was the first courtesan who invested. She didn't just hide gold under the mattress. She invested in real estate, in trade, in manufactories. By 40, she had an annual income of 50,000 livres, more than many dukes. She could afford to refuse kings, literally. When young Louis XIV, the Sun King, tried to seduce her, she said, "Your Majesty, I am too old for you. You are 20. I am 40. Find yourself a younger toy." Louis was shocked. He had never been refused. But instead of getting angry, he made her his confidant. When he needed honest advice, he came to Ninon. When he needed to vet a new favorite, he sent her to Ninon. She became the gray cardinal of the French court in a skirt. But the years passed. Beauty faded. Lovers grew younger, and she grew older. At 50, she still received lovers, but under different rules. Now they paid not for beauty, but for experience, for conversations, for wisdom, for the fact that she taught them the art of love that they then used with their young wives. She became a university of debauchery, and they paid for their education in gold. At 60, she closed her salon to lovers, but opened it to philosophers. Descartes, Pascal, Racine, Molière, all came to the old courtesan to discuss the meaning of life. And you know what's strangest? They respected her more than any duchess, because she earned her intelligence herself, didn't receive it as an inheritance like a title. At 70, she was still wealthy, still independent, still free. A woman who proved that one can live life by one's own rules and die with dignity. But there was one secret that Ninon hid all her life. At 20, she gave birth to a son by the Marquis de Jersey. The child was immediately given away to be raised in the provinces. Ninon paid for his upkeep, but never met with him. He grew up not knowing who his mother was. He thought she died in childbirth, and then, when he turned 20, he came to Paris. Handsome, educated, noble, and ended up in Ninon de Lenclos' salon, who was already 70. But she still had that magnetism that drove men mad. The boy fell in love, madly, to the point of insanity. He wrote her poetry, sent flowers, begged for a meeting. Ninon laughed at first, then became concerned. Something about this young man was familiar, too familiar. She began to ask questions. Where was he from? Who were his parents? And the truth was revealed like a thunderbolt. It was her son. Her own son had fallen in love with her without knowing she was his mother. Ninon was horrified. She tried to gently push him away, said he was too young, that she was too old. But the boy was obsessed. He threatened to kill himself if she didn't reciprocate his feelings. And then Ninon did the only thing she could. She told the truth. "I am your mother." The boy didn't believe it, thought she was making it up to get rid of him. But Ninon showed documents, letters, proof. When reality dawned on him, he left her house, went home, wrote a farewell letter, and shot himself. Ninon never recovered from this blow. The last 15 years of her life, she didn't receive lovers, didn't hold lavish receptions, simply lived quietly in her mansion, surrounded by books and memories. When she turned 80, she began writing memoirs, but destroyed them a week before her death. Said the truth was too cruel for this world. She died as she lived, by her own rules, refused last rites, told the priest she had nothing to repent for, lived her life honestly, deceived no one, promised no one what she couldn't give. And if God judges her for this, then he's not the God worth worshiping. She was buried at night, without ceremonies, without speeches, as she had stipulated. On the grave only the name, Ninon de Lenclos. No dates, no epitaphs. Because what does it matter how many years you lived? What matters is how you lived them. She left a huge legacy, not just money, but an idea. The idea that a woman can be free, can live by her own rules, can die wealthy and independent. In an era when women were burned for free thinking, she proved that intelligence and courage are stronger than superstitions. That you think? Was Ninon de Lenclos a libertine who ruined the lives of 12 men? Or a brilliant woman who was centuries ahead of her time? Write in the comments. And if this story made you think, give it a like. Subscribe to the channel, because history hides many more secrets about women who dared to be free. See you in the next video.